I woke up feeling off in a way that was more than usual, but I ignored it. I had been deep in thought the last few days and frankly off in the clouds. Did I even sleep well? I didn't remember. So I plunged into my normal weekday routine, moving through the motions, checking off the boxes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to grasp onto something solid, like an answer. In the moment before my world went black, I thought to myself, I know my one wish. I awoke in an unfamiliar place with an unfamiliar figure standing before me. He asked,
"What is your ultimate definite desire?"
This was no question from the ether of dreams. This was a question I had tumbling through my mind the last few days, but had no answer for in reality. In this place, either my dream or the afterlife, of which I was not yet sure, I was able to answer it without a second thought. I want to feel like at any time in my life, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, and no one else I'd rather be with. The unfamiliar figure, whose face was soft, like a blurred image, cocked his head thoughtfully.
What does that mean to you?
It's the feeling of walking into your neighborhood library and the librarian knowing your name, and then walking to the coffee shop where the barista knows your order and you know the barista's name, where they come from, and what they do outside of coffee. The feeling of being truly seen and seeing in return. And then I woke up.
There's been a question on my mind for quite some time, so I wanted to know how my friends felt and how they might answer it. And the term ultimate definite desire felt more of a powerful and potent question than what do you want most out of life, which we hear often. Generally, people want the same things, which is what I realized. Time to be with those they love, enough money to travel every now and then with their loved ones. Health is becoming a big one for my friends who are all in their 30s, most of them. And I began to realize that for the majority of people, for the majority of my friends, if they were ever going to acquire the object or the reality of that desire, they were going to have to stop working 40 hours a week at a job that they either were forced to do for the money or absolutely hated it. And I guess I shouldn't say or, because in most cases it's both. So I came to expect that type of answer. But when I asked one of my very best friends, what is your ultimate definite desire in life? Her answer was something that I haven't heard. And it was also very simple at the same time, but so profound. And she said, which I think what made it more powerful was that it was a voice memo and not a text. I could hear her words and the emotion in her words. And she said, I want to feel like at any time in my life, there's nowhere else I'd rather be and no one else that I would rather be with. And that really blew me away. And I never really thought about life like that ever. And that's really what that is when we were unpacking it for this episode, was that she wants to be content in every moment of her life,
Mm-hmm.
But again, what does it even mean to be content? And Sam and I have very different ideas about that because we're different people.
Of course, we have different ideas.
So we decided that there was only one reliable, foolproof way to find out: the internet. So when you search the single word content or contentment on YouTube, what's interesting is a lot of religious material populates. Like most of what I see, I was expecting like a TED Talk actually. And what I found was a lot of like sermons about contentment. That had me wondering, is there a spiritual prerequisite to being content? Why are all these notions of contentment intertwined with religious beliefs? So I decided to, continue and consult the comment section. And I think that there's something definitely very powerful about being hopeful. And I think that's one of the default settings for people who are religious. And I can attest to this because I grew up in a religious household. And most of my family is still religious in that way. And they do hold on to this sometimes illogical or irrational, in my opinion, hopefulness about life, no matter their circumstances, which is very admirable. There's something about them and about their belief in a higher power and belief in God that, I don't know, it seems to like better set them up for contentment or for hope in the future, hope for happiness and or contentment in the future. But it does turn out that the comment section in this case was not very helpful because no one really had any answers for why they, or how they could be content or how they could reach contentment, or if they had, or if they hadn't, what did they need to do to reach it? It was mostly just Bible verses and, amen, hallelujah. And so I realized quickly that wasn't going to help us solve the answer.
Did you feel like a lot of the religious stuff that you were coming upon was more from the West, like Christianity, Catholicism, or did you feel like it was a spread of different types of spiritual practices?
I would say, yeah, it was mostly religious, like the modern West, like, yeah, non-denominational Christian, Catholic, which to me,
That's interesting.
well, there's so many things you could say, right? Is it the algorithm? Is it my
Yeah.
is it my location
Yeah.
because I'm in America that
Yeah.
it's populating all of these things? So now my view of contentment and the way that the internet feels about it or approaches it is skewed,
Totally.
or it's just not reliable because I have no idea. Like, I mean, I only looked at the first page, right? So there obviously are so many other ways, so many other videos and so much other content around the world talking about this very idea.
Mhm.
But for me, it was interesting that it was mostly just religious sermons and conversations.
I find that super interesting because in the research that I did in my own algorithm on my own laptop, a lot of what I came up with was from the East. So, like Buddhism, Hinduism, like people in Nepal, people in rural villages that don't have internet access, and this idea of meditation and enlightenment, like sitting with oneself and going inward to discover.
Mm-hmm.
An incredibly interesting diversion between these two, but I think there is overlap among all spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out we can't do a humanities in the comment section segment for this because it was talking mostly about happiness than it was about contentment. And these are totally different feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something that exists, which is just called the Contentment Foundation. I found this highly interesting because most times when we search TED Talks, when we search self-help books, we find happiness as the keyword. So the founder, Daniel Cordero, poses the question, what if you pursued contentment rather than happiness? And this is a really interesting question along the pathway to discovering how do we pursue and find contentment. He did a 5-year-long study identifying human emotions that were quote unquote universal. Mm-hmm. So things did come to the surface, things like shame, joy, embarrassment. This included people who, like I was saying earlier, had absolutely no access to the outside world. So nomads that had been existing kind of in their own silo with no phones, no media, no influence from the outside world. These emotions were recognized. But the one emotion that was different from all of the other emotions was contentment. When they were in conversations with these nomads, obviously they don't speak English, so there was a translator, and the translator was having a hard time describing what they ultimately discovered was contentment. The way that he described it was, it basically means that right here, right now, everything is perfect as it is, regardless of what you are experiencing outside. So essentially, what makes contentment different from all of our other emotions is that our other emotions are responses to our external outside world, but contentment is a response to our internal world. In a woo-woo way, this is a reflection of our wholeness.
That is quite woo-woo. Define wholeness.
So I think this kind of goes back for me to this idea of fulfillment or satisfaction. And as a perfectionist who has often in my life tied my self-worth to my productivity and my external achievements, I don't have the perfect answer for this. I just know what it doesn't look like because I've done it for so long.
Mm-hmm. So besides the obvious things that you're going to hear over and over about how to be content, which are almost always the same, right? Which is like find a way to live in the present moment, meditate, be with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Practice mindfulness, get in some kind of mindfulness habit.
We came up with our own, what we'll call prerequisites that we thought any one person might need to acquire before being ready to possess contentment. I'm not even saying that we have these, but it's a list that you and I put together based on our own versions of what it means to be content and how to get there. Number 1, probably the most difficult to acquire, is an accountability partner, friend or romantic.
What does this mean to you? Like, what is the function of having an accountability partner?
We've been talking a lot about it with each other, but also among my friends, it's something we've been talking about. It's like, if we are going to make change in our lives, difficult change, it requires some really difficult action. And the only way that we think that we can do that consistently is to have an accountability partner. Because I suffer in a silo. Like I can't give myself consequences, right? If I fail to do the thing, I guess the worst thing that happens is that I'm upset with myself, which is actually, that is pretty bad. That does eventually take an effect on you, right? But worse is like letting down, and this might be controversial to you because you said things like, or it's not something you came up with, but basically the saying is disappoint as many people as it takes to avoid disappointing yourself, which is funny because for me, it's the opposite. I can disappoint myself all day, but I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to disappoint my friends. So having an accountability partner, which means being completely open and vulnerable and honest about what it is that you're lacking, what it is that you want, and what you're going to do to get it, and the things that you need to, kill off in order to get the things that you want are normally very difficult things. Having the accountability partner makes it, in my opinion, much, much, much easier to bear the load and to share those problems, and even better, to share the successes with.
Yeah.
You get that, you get on a roll, you get momentum, you can get a lot of power from just a friend saying,
great job.
That's sick, dude. Yeah.
You know what I also think that this serves to function as? It feels like the answer to the riddle, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Saying it out loud. So even if at this very moment you do not have an accountability partner, saying out loud, I think, the thing that you want and putting it out there, when you put voice and words to something, it changes. And I think it becomes more tangible.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, number 2, an unbridled romanticism of life. I realize that I spend so many moments of my life doing very mundane things. Driving, making the bed, doing dishes, brushing my teeth.
Yeah.
Working out to me is mundane because it's really boring and it hurts, and that's not fun. There are so many mundane moments, but not even the mundane moments, but like the challenging ones, right? Which I feel like take up a lot of our life. I don't know, maybe that's work. There are often times that we are uncomfortable or in a place that maybe we don't want to be in the very moment. And I realized the only way to change my perspective of my life as it unfolds is to change the way I feel about the things that I do often that I don't by default like or love to do. And how do I find a way to fall in love with those things? And for me, it's like tricking my brain. It's actually like making a story of my life. I'm practicing falling in love with the simplicity of our life, with my life,
Something that has come up a lot in the last week in various conversations that you and I have had, and also that I've just had, is this idea that you should fill all of your time, you should stay busy, and being idle and having nothing to do is a recipe for getting in your head, getting in a bad headspace, not feeling so great about your life. And I think that romanticizing your life and falling in love with the small things, the simplicity, is a great way to circumvent feeling like you need to stay busy, because I don't necessarily resonate with that sentiment that we should just fill our time.
We just had that conversation with my dad on speakerphone. My grandpa just passed away a couple days ago, and he owned a barbershop and worked as a barber for over 50 years. And that's like all he knew was work, And then when he had to stop, when he was probably 85, he didn't really have any other hobbies. And he declined pretty quickly and then developed dementia and then eventually passed away. And then my dad was talking about ways for himself to, sustain happiness and just to stay in a healthy life. I told him, I think I asked him, how much longer do you think you'll live? And basically his answer to living a long life was to stay busy. He's like, I have to stay busy. I need to be busy. My dad's also a hairstylist and he's been doing it for over 30 years. And I'm trying to warn him of the same things, the pitfalls that befell his dad. It's like, you need to find something, you need to have something to effectively romanticize your life when you do have to stop working. Remember we even asked him that. We were like, well, when you have to stop working, he's like, oh, well, I'm going to work, pretty well, probably into my 80s. And I said, Dad, eventually you will have to stop working.
Yeah.
When you do, what will you do?
Yeah.
And I guess, his answer was that he would, devote the rest of his time to my mom, which is fine. That's a good answer. But he also needs other things to keep busy.
Yeah.
That actually flies in the face of what you're saying, though. You're right. Like, can my dad be content with just being at home with my mother every single day? I think this is tough. We're kind of battling on this idea because I think that the answer is maybe no. That he does need, and some people do need to be busy. They do need to feel like they're fulfilling a sense of purpose, like they're fulfilling some sort of duty, which I mean, I kind of feel to an extent too. So is contentment just this affect that some people will never have because in order for them to live a fulfilling life, they have to be doing something and they can't be content with just being where they are and doing nothing, which might only apply to people that are in retirement age, you know?
Well, I think no matter how busy you are, there are times when you are quiet with your own thoughts. Like you have to spend all of your time with yourself. You have no other choice. Maybe pose the question to yourself, are you running from something or are you running towards something? And what happens in between? Because I often feel like when we have a need to fill all of our time, we're actually running from having time to just sit quietly with our thoughts. Like we would rather not. So we would just rather work a lot or do a lot, be engaged in those things, and then be tired and go to sleep and do it all again.
Number 3, it might seem a little bit far out there, so bear with us. We will explain it. And it is your own personal mind movie. Samantha, quickly explain to the audience, what is a mind movie?
I would call a mind movie a combination of manifestation and meditation, maybe. So projecting in your mind a thing that you desire, but sort of quietly and in a focused state.
I have a hunch that if people could visually see their future, if they had a mind movie, in effect, that they could actually watch of them living out their dream, or whatever it is that they think will make them content, that it would become more possible for them to achieve it. Because they can't see it. It seems unachievable, unobtainable. Some of us, people like me, maybe not people like Sam, like to imagine all of this technology that possibly exists, that definitely exists in the world that we just don't know about, right? I love to fantasize about that. I have very many ideas about that. I think that there's plenty of technology out there that exists that we don't know about, can't even comprehend. And I like to romanticize my own life by envisioning what a perfect government would do with the technology that could create mind movies. I do believe that it's actually possible right now that there's some sort of device that could read your thoughts and your visions of whatever it is that it may be, record it, translate it, transcribe it, and create an actual movie out of your thoughts, right? Like it'd be awesome if, the dream that we have in the morning or the dream that we have overnight, that we wake up in the morning and it eludes us immediately, that could be recorded and then watched. I think that that's possible already.
So instead of it projecting in your mind, it's projecting literally in a movie theater.
Not even, a movie theater. It could be a DVD. It could be VHS. Okay. It could be, it's some sort of digital download that you could watch from wherever, your phone. That you can consume. At home, that you could consume, yes. A perfect government would create this device that translates your visions of your ultimate definite desire and then creates an actual movie out of it. And I think if every person could watch a movie of their future, they would better believe it to be possible to acquire, to possess, right? So going back to the character from the beginning of this episode, in a reality where this technology exists, here's what it might look like.
I woke up, but in my dream, a more specific vision of what I wanted became available to me. I told the fuzzy character whose features I could not detect or describe, I want to be my own boss and be financially stable so my partner doesn't have to work. Live somewhere that's walkable to everything that we want to do. My only worry is where our next adventure is going to be. He pondered a moment to process the information, then responded.
You said you want to be your own boss. What would you be the boss of?
Here it was, my ultimate definite desire. I would own a small comfort food joint that has specialty mac and cheese dishes, shepherd's pie, short ribs, sandwiches, meatball, Italian beef, ice cream, and seasonal desserts. He turned around and began to walk away. I shouted out to him, "Where are you going?" He responded just loud enough for me to hear.
Then it is that you shall have.
And then there it was, the shop, the smell I had been associating with my visions of it all these last few years. Patrons everywhere, happy, well-paid workers, some of them my good friends and family. But my brain, my thoughts began flooding in. The toilets in the bathroom are overflowing. We're out of shepherd's pie. The flight that I have to catch next week hasn't even been booked yet. It's been such a long damn day, my feet hurt. And after all my worries and complaints were through, the smell receded, the vision faded, and I woke up again in this reality.
So consider for yourself, if somebody gave you everything you ever wanted, do you think you would be content? I think that's a thing that people don't think about. When I'm envisioning my ultimate reality in the future, I'm always seeing it play out. I'm looking at the external. I'm looking at what's happening and what's unfolding before my eyes. I'm thinking of maybe smells and tastes and words, but I'm not thinking about the inner me. I'm not thinking about what my brain, what my conscious is thinking of. I so deeply wish that I could give my friends what they want. I love hearing what exactly it is that they want, and I wish that I could give it to them. And then I think, if I could give it to them, if something could give it to them, would they even be content?
This to me is about balancing the desired destination of something. So your mind movie, your vision of the future, your ambition, with the love of the journey, which is kind of where romanticizing your life comes in. Because there will literally just never be a point where we think, oh, I've made it. Oh, I reached the destination. Oh, yep, now all of the things that I've ever wanted have come to fruition, and that is the perfect recipe. Like, emotions are fleeting and life is complicated. So how do we find the pockets of contentment in every day along the way? When I reflect on the things that I do during the day of this, in the vein of romanticizing my life, they're entertainment based. So listening to audiobooks, watching TV with you, watching TikToks. And the thing that is common amongst all of those things is narrative and story. And I suspect, my theory is that the reason why we love these things so much is because we are content in the moment that we're watching them. For that one moment, the outside world doesn't matter, and we're engulfed in this singular story, along for the ride with the main character. And so what I love about Mind Movie is that is exactly what you have been talking about for a long time, which is entertainment with a purpose.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also wondering, maybe that is like a defense mechanism for me. Maybe that's why I'm trying to make my life a movie in some ways. As ridiculous as that sounds, I love movies because I love stories, because stories are part of what make us human. You know what I mean? It's like, how can I make my own story? And I think that's why I'm obsessed with journaling and writing everything down and recording everything and finding ways to live life creatively, you know? And so, like, how can I do that while also appear to be a normal person to other people?
I don't think you have to worry about being a normal person to other people. I think that it's mostly about fighting the tension between the story that exists outside of yourself, which can also be the destination or the achievement that you hope to gain, and the journey of getting there. So, like, this very present moment, like the here and now, whatever that means. It's literally not possible for us to feel one thing all the time. And so even if you experience contentment, that's amazing. You won't experience it all the time every day, because that's the human condition.
When I was a senior in college and I was in a photo class, I was having a pretty real discussion with my professor at the time, very famous photographer actually. I asked her, I don't know, we were having a pretty real discussion, and I asked her, I don't even know why I asked her this, but I asked her, do you think I'll ever be happy? And she straight up was like, no, you'll never be happy.
That's real talk.
I think that happiness and contentment, you're right, are a ever elusive, fleeting emotion, and that when you feel it, you should just be grateful for feeling it in the moment.
Well, I think that happiness and contentment are not the same thing, and that in the West, we have this hyperfixation on happiness, but perhaps we should shift our focus just a little bit, a couple of degrees, and seek out contentment instead.